On a cloudy morning, Yusuf stood before the old house he inherited from his mysterious grandfather, a house that seemed to have emerged from a terrifying fairy tale. The house was large and dilapidated, surrounded by an abandoned garden and tree branches intertwined like fingers. As he stepped inside, the floorboards creaked with every step, and the walls were covered in a thick layer of dust. The first night passed relatively peacefully, but Yusuf began to notice strange things the next day. The shadows in the house appeared unnatural. At first, he convinced himself they were just illusions caused by poor lighting. But over time, he realized that the shadows moved even when he did not, as if they were silently watching him. One night, while sitting and reading in the living room, he saw his shadow stretching across the wall. What terrified him was that the shadow moved differently from him. He stopped reading and suddenly stood up, but his shadow continued to sit. A feeling of danger overwhelmed him, but he decided to ignore it and convinced himself he was just tired. As days passed, the shadows became more hostile. He heard whispering voices coming from the dark corners and sometimes felt an unseen hand touch his shoulder. Doors opened and closed by themselves, and objects moved around the house as if driven by invisible hands. Yusuf decided to search the house for any evidence explaining what was happening. While rummaging through the attic, he found an old box filled with letters and photographs. One of the letters was written in his grandfather's handwriting and bore a warning. To anyone who dares to dwell here, know that this house does not belong to you alone. The shadows here are trapped souls due to a mistake made long ago. Beware of provoking them, for they will take from you what you cannot recover. Yusuf felt a wave of terror, but he was determined to learn more. He discovered that his grandfather had performed mysterious rituals years ago to turn the souls of his enemies into shadows trapped in the house. Those souls were angry and bent on revenge. One night, Yusuf woke up to find that his shadow was no longer on the wall beside him. He felt the walls with a trembling hand, but found no trace of it. Suddenly, he saw his shadow standing before him, manifesting more clearly as a darkened version of himself. The shadow moved separately from him, looking at him with completely dark eyes. He tried to escape, but the shadow was faster and stronger. It began to chase him around the house, and during the pursuit, Yusuf realized that the shadow wanted to take his place. The longer the struggle continued, the closer the shadow came to succeeding. In a moment of despair, Yusuf remembered the box he had found in the attic and decided to use it as a last resort. He opened the box and read the incantations written inside with a trembling voice. The room shook violently, and the shadows screamed in terrifying voices, but they began to disappear one by one. When everything calmed down, the house was in a state of strange silence. Yusuf breathed a sigh of relief, but when he looked down at the floor, he noticed that he had no shadow. He felt confused, then looked into the nearby mirror and saw his shadow smiling at him from within, as if saying, "The matter is not over yet."